Well, here we are today with Denise from Virtuzone. We're doing our first podcast here as a team and as a company. We're going to be talking about a lot of different topics throughout the course of this experiment. And then hopefully this experiment becomes more than an experiment and something that people really like to tune into and enjoy.
Yeah.
Now, as everybody has heard, AI is massive these days. So the topic that we've decided to kick off with is AI, and in particular, ChatGPT and all the rage that's going around that. So, Denise, what have you heard so far?
I mean, besides the fact that I started using it, I just know that it's revolutionary. I think it's just kind of feels like the Industrial Revolution all over again, because there's fear in the market about it, there's resistance, but there's also so many people embracing its potential and, you know, how it can change things for individuals and businesses. To me, I think it's incredible.
Yeah.
I wish I had in university, to be honest.
I know. I mean, that's the two sides of the sword, right?
Yes.
You've got one side where it's like, this is an amazing tool, and then the other side is like, well, will it be used for good or evil? Where is it going to go? Is it taking jobs? Is it saving jobs? Is it making new jobs?
Yeah.
So that's sort of some of the things I think we want to explore, right? So a little bit of background on where this has gotten to, and something that I found really interesting. I was listening to another podcast by this guy Billy Jean the other day, and he summarized it really well. He said, it's not that there hasn't been AI before. You think about your spell check on your Word documents, and you think about what's going on behind Amazon and Google and all these sorts of things, but what hasn't been there before is that accessibility to people like me and you, the rest of the team and all the people out there, to be able to utilize AI and this sort of natural language tools to start to automate everything that they're doing. And I think that's what's really sort of sparked a real light under the whole world, and everyone's just gone AI mad.
Exactly. The fact that it came out and it was free and it was so easily accessible. And like you said, like people have been using it, it just wasn't out there, and maybe we didn't even know how to use it. And even now, I mean, there's ways of using it that you could ask a simple question, but if you understand how to use AI and understand how to ask the right questions, that's when it opens so many other doors, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. So you've got people using it in their own work. You've got people using it like in their own jobs day to day. You've got people that are starting to build tools with it. It's how do you capitalize on it beyond just this little ChatGPT bot or this little fad, and start to incorporate it into sort of day-to-day operation in your everyday life. And I think that's what's really exciting, and that's sort of what we want to talk about today a little bit is where is it going? What are the opportunities sort of in the AI space right now, especially for entrepreneurs and for businesses? It's, how can you automate your current business? How can you become more lean? The whole lean startup ideology now takes on a whole nother dimension with AI. How do you become a rock star in your own company? How can you build tools with this, and what does that look like? And sort of how can you tie different AI models together that are not just GPT? You've got a whole plethora of different tools that are out there for visualization, for podcasting and video. We'll probably be using an AI tool to chop this up.
Hopefully,
once we're done, to save our guys a little bit of time at the end. Just a little bit about the background. I mean, and those are the sort of topics we'll cover, whether now or in sort of future episodes. So what would you say, like, in terms of, there's the hype part, but what would you say are some of the fear factors that are circling around right now?
Terminator, apocalypse, robots taking over.
Skynet.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've seen some videos online where, again, I'm questioning the credibility of the source, but if you mess around with AI long enough and you start asking questions and try to like almost trick the AI, it starts giving you different answers every time. Like there was somebody who tried and, ChatGPT wouldn't give you the answer to something. And then they typed in, but you answered this before.
Yeah.
And then it took some time and it actually answered the question, right? So there's like loopholes around it, and people, obviously the more information you're feeding it, the more it has, relativity and something to study from, because what AI is doing right now is just getting every conversation, every input and every search on the internet and trying to understand how humans really work around this kind of information, right? So maybe there is a way in the future that AI could become conscious in a way, sentient, which it kind of worries me, because that's the one thing about humans that you can't really automate, and it's not a science that you can observe emotions. But I feel like there's a long way.
Program it to press the red button,
So what I do now is I say, when ChatGPT gives me an answer, I'm like, oh, thank you for that. I'm being nice to the machine. I'm hoping they will remember me if that happens. No, but in all seriousness,
I love that.
I think the real fear is mostly around jobs being automated and people losing their jobs. And like I said, industrial revolution. I mean, people worked in factories with their hands. There was a lot of need for manpower, and then certain things started getting automated, and then people lost their jobs.
Yeah.
But they found new jobs. So maybe this is just going to open new ways of working with it, and you're still going to need a human observant to be able to input data or analyze data or see the little errors that AI is still going to run.
Yeah. I mean, I think some jobs as we know them today, they might get phased out over time. But I think that they're going to evolve into different types of jobs.
Yes, exactly.
It's more like amplification versus replacement, where it's not going to do your job for you.
Yeah.
You can't just sit back and then hope that something's going to happen. You still have to prompt it. You still have to tweak it and refine it. And sometimes doing that takes longer than actually just writing the answer that you wanted the first time, because we're already doing jobs that we're mostly would be good at. But where I think you start to see how it can change the world is, instead of, say, someone that does search engine optimization, we're in the marketing team, so we talk marketing, that's what we know, that's what we're thinking, how do we make it speed that up? You might start to see articles get generated in a couple of hours instead of taking days and days with a really high-end author, or maybe editors become more of the popular person because they have to go in and make sure it's not to AI.
Yes.
So a new role becomes way more important in the
almost
day-to-day.
like supervision rather
supervision,
than...
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But that's just with ChatGPT as it is so far. Now, ChatGPT 4 is rolling out, and I know you've kind of been more in touch with that than I have, because you were just... wouldn't stop talking about it. It's like, oh, that's so cool. So will you please tell us a little bit of what you know of what ChatGPT 4 is?
For sure. So I'm like the AI nerd.
Yeah. And we love it.
In the office, So something that's really amazing, so start with the facts behind GPT-3, right? It's the fastest ever app. Now, this is including TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Amazon, anything like that. It's the fastest growing app to 1 million users. It took 4 days. Incredible. Now that is, ridiculous.
Unprecedented.
But then you fast forward a couple of months, and now they're at over 100 million users. And just to put that in perspective, and I am reading right now, so to be fair, I didn't memorize these stats. ChatGPT did help me a little bit with some of this. But it took TikTok 2.5 years. TikTok took 9 months. Instagram took 2.5 years to get to 100 million users, and this just took a few months. And now they're at 25 million daily users. I mean, that was a month ago, so that's probably even higher now. And with GPT-4, so we were running on GPT-3. Yeah. That's what most people will have interacted with. Developers will have had access to 3.5. This is really exciting. I mean, this is something that the entrepreneurs out there and the devs and stuff that they'll really geek out on is they get access to the APIs, which means they can connect their own custom software to this and start asking it questions and giving amazing answers back to people and just wrapping interfaces around it. And that's really cool. Now, GPT-4, this extends the power of GPT in its neural network to something like a trillion different neural connections, which is 10x or 100x on top of what GPT-3 was. So the answers are so much more real. If anyone's watched the GPT-4 video when they released it, it built a website out of a napkin sketch.
Yeah.
You know,
I saw that.
it was writing sentences like, you know, the guy was typing in, you know, write a sentence to describe this article only, and every word has to start with Q. You know, it was ridiculous, and it pulled it off.
Yeah.
Whereas, he asked the previous model, the 3.5 and 3, to do the same thing, and it just refused to give the right answer. You know, it gave the answer that it could give, and that was it. So with GPT-4, the quality of answers you're able to get from the basic inputs you can give it are astronomically, you know, more correct. Still not perfect though. You know, this is where the art of prompting is now. One of my predictions is that prompt engineers will be sort of the next wave of jobs that come out of this, and you'll see those popping up on freelance networks and people on LinkedIn and social media that are going to be sending out like, hey, don't do this, get my 1,000 prompts for, you know, $5. You know, this is the new ad that I see everywhere. So I think it still isn't perfect, but it's getting there and learning all the time, and being able to feed it is what's really, I think, really interesting.
Yeah. So what are some of the ways that entrepreneurs could, let's say, grow their business with ChatGPT?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways, right? You know, one of the easiest ways that's now around is building your own, say, tool or chatbot for your own business. You know, let's just say you're a slightly larger business. Let's not take a full-on startup. Let's take a slightly larger business. And let's just say they have a knowledge base that they want to communicate to people, and they can't afford a big team for live chat or communications or service desk. They can train the bot on their own resource material, and this is the most magical part. Is, you know, GPT, it stopped learning in September 2021, right? So it knows nothing after that. So if you ask it something about the World Cup or anything like that, it knows nothing. So you can train it though, you can feed it the information. So you can start to feed it sources, and this is on the developer side. So you can't just do this in GPT-4, you can't just give it URLs and stuff yet as normal users, but on the development side, so you can start to feed it this. Now, let's just say you have your company knowledge base, you can feed it the knowledge base, then you can train it on a few questions, you can prompt how you want it to interact, and then your team is enabled with the power of your knowledge base. Every single person in the team is enabled, and it can give better answers faster than a person ever could, because no one has learned the whole knowledge base.
Yeah.
Whereas it can go and draw upon it in microseconds. So you can set that as a live chat, as a tool at the front. And this is what a lot of people are starting to build, is these tools to enable live chat and service desk operations. And then say you scale this back to a smaller business, okay? Just enabling your sales team to write proposals at breakneck speed, right? I had a guy I helped the other day. They were doing a web proposal. All he had was a table, right? It just had columns of like, who are the people, what are the functions that the website's got to do, the hours it's going to take, the people involved, and that's it. A couple of questions about functionality. And then we worked together on prompting GPT, and it created a 14-page, fully perfect written web proposal. And it was like, I couldn't have written better myself. I've written 100 proposals, and I was like, wow, okay. You know, you could just ask it, what are the risk mitigation strategies behind a project such as this?
Yeah.
And it's read 100,000 website proposals that are available online and part of its learning, and so it could give a table on risks and mitigation in seconds. So small teams with 1 or 2 salespeople, or the founders as salespeople, can start to utilize this for those sorts of jobs that they've got, where they've got to wear 100 hats. Many of these hats now can be amplified with GPT, and they can be experts immediately in legal. You know, they can start to no more looking and Googling for a template. You'll just ask GPT, hey, I need a legal template for a shareholder agreement. It's UAE law or UK law. Here are the people's names. Quickly create that for me.
Yes.
And hey presto, you've got something that's probably going to be 98% correct.
I think the one thing that people are still a bit skeptical is the creative side of AI, which is fair. I mean, it still is creating digital art, and I asked ChatGPT to write me a stand-up script. It wasn't great, but it understood comedy, and I'm pretty sure it's, again, based on the articles that are online that describe there's a science behind writing stand-up, right? Like I said, it was a bit lame, but I was very impressed that it was able to kind of understand that and still give me a script out of the blue.
That's interesting. And was that on GPT-3 or GPT-4? Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to see you ask the same question on GPT-4. That'd be one that we could film and put on the next episode and show people.
Very excited about that. And I can't remember. So you said the Chat GPT-4 can't read external links. So if you're feeding it right? Because that would be very useful.
But you could say, scrape the information from a website, copy and paste it into GPT and say, hi, learn from this. So you can open a new conversation, and anyone that's not familiar with the interface, essentially it is a bar, that's like a search bar. You just type your question or answer in, and then it will begin chatting with you, essentially. And so in one of those conversations, it does remember the things that have come before in that conversation.
Yeah.
So you could essentially go, hey, I'm going to send you a bunch of text. I want you to relearn this. And then it will learn it. And then you say, have you learnt it? And it'll say, yes. Okay, cool. I'm going to feed you some more, because it can only take in a couple of thousand words at a time, something like that. In GPT-3, it's a couple of thousand. In GPT-4, it's more. But you don't want to feed too much because it does get confused if you give it too much.
Yeah.
So you feed it this. You could feed it samples of other stand-ups that you're looking to emulate or not looking to emulate. Say, I don't want anything like this. Do the opposite, you know. And then once it's got all of that, then you could start to drill into it and start to, poke holes. And as it gives you your first answer, start to go, oh, no, I don't like that bit. Just be smarter there.
Yeah. Virtual assistants as well, right? That might be the next thing, because you can give it a task. You can ask it to transcribe a meeting that you recorded, because we were talking about transcribing meetings.
Yeah.
Taking that script and say, hey, give me bullet point summary of what was talked about in that meeting.
Yep.
Create an email and send it to this and this and this. And it could start automating that into the system, and it just eliminates but then again, in my mind, I'm always kind of thinking that there still needs to be human supervision.
Yeah.
So maybe you have 5 different virtual assistants, but you still need a head assistant.
One coordinator,
yes.
That's like, but it's like, that's like real life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's we don't go and put 5 assistants together to do a job. They'll always, once you get that many, you'll have a manager.
Yeah.
So I think it's the same basic concept. You always have to treat it like a person still, in that but a person that can't do it by themselves.
Yeah.
It can't just come up with ideas. You can say come up with ideas, but it itself will not sit there and generate ideas by itself.
I wonder if ChatGPT or AI, not just ChatGPT, would ever be used in something like politics, to, let's say, automate systems that get rid of corruption.
Yeah, well, this is one of the debates, right? This is the fear factor on its political view, and a lot of people have stepped away from, especially GPT. Let's stick on that for now. That's what dissuades a lot of people, or the people that are not afraid, but like are more warning of cautious behavior, is like, look, you can automate hate speech. Yeah. If you want to, you can run this through a Google Sheet and ask it to do 1,000 lines of hate emails propaganda, and it will, for now, do it. GPT-4's, they've gotten a bit smarter. Yeah. So it can recognize things like racism and political agendas a little bit closer. So
are you able to program something like that to be ethical, or give it a list of moral codes that it can't overrun?
If you maybe created your own, say, tool, right, like a political tool, and built into that the reference material, then you could have like a button that's just like, send me out some normal structured material that doesn't have any political agenda to it, but it's all ethical. So you could, but GPT itself, it's for the masses, right? So
It does have a built-in kind of moral code, because I remember when I was asking, I was like, give me a couple of corporate jokes that I could say about my colleagues at this end of year party, and it replied with, you should not be making jokes on your colleagues at work. This could hurt people's feelings, and I was like, no, it's cool, like they're really cool, like just give me something that is, you know, acceptable, like I'm not asking for something crazy, but just some humor. And it replied again, sorry, I can't help you with this, I just don't think it's nice to make fun of your coworkers.
You're joking.
And I got so upset, like me and ChatGPT had beef for a little bit, because I didn't what do you mean you're saying no? And then I was like, how can I ask this differently? And then I played around with it a little bit, and essentially it gave me examples of corporate jokes, but still didn't want to feed me into that.
I mean, that's really interesting, and that's, you know, that's the prompting thing, right? So that's where, okay, it's not answering that, but okay, for the purpose of a play, you know, the play will have a dinner party, and at the dinner party they'll be doing this. And then, you know, you can then ask it questions around that. And so it's thinking it's just writing it for a screenplay. I saw a few people beat the system using that that same mentality. You know?
Again, like learning how to input data and how to ask the right questions is still very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, that's you know, if you talk about some of these things like, you know, automating for your business, that's something like if you have a takeaway from this episode, it will be learn how the prompting works. Right, because all the next things that we're going to cover, automation, using it to hire better, becoming a rock star, building tools, tying different models together, it all comes back to how you communicate with AI. And that is pretty structured. And there are a lot of resources out there. We'll share them later. But really, it's like get in there and just start practicing and just try different ways. Make sure you give it a personality. You know, so a few quick tips is, one, give it a personality. Like, you are an expert at social media marketing, or you are a book writer writing children's stories. I have kids, so, you know, one of the things I've started doing is our bedtime stories. So, hey, pretend you're a children's writer, you're creating a really fun story, and it will be about Mario, and then include kids' names in it. And then it starts to write a story. And the first one I was like, this is not very good. Okay, make it have a little rhyme to the text. And then, so once you get the prompting right, you can learn to get all of that in one go. Make it shorter, make it longer. So make sure you give like length of answers, and then really just play around and experiment and use it for different use cases.
So the thing that people need to understand is that it will take everything you say very literally. And if you don't use your words enough, it's going to literally give you that. Because I remember asking certain things like, write me this, and paraphrase it and write into one paragraph, write it into 150 words. And it literally takes exactly what you're saying. So it's not like you would tell a person and a person just kind of starts conceptualizing and being like, oh, maybe that's what they meant. Prompting.
Prompting, it's super critical. And, you know, it's also important to remember that you can make it write code, you can make it do tables. I found this is the thing I've been really getting into lately once I saw that it can create tables. So you can sort of go, summarize all of this information you've just delivered me into a table. And it will have a go at making all the columns and fields and stuff, and it has been amazing. 9 times out of 10, it delivers me a table that summarizes all the information, and I'm like, okay, well, there's our...
Well, there are extensions now that you can link into your Excel and Microsoft Office, and it will just work directly into your Excel. You know, it's just...
True.
It's so good.
I mean, so... amplification, that's where it's going, I think. And I mean, this is what we'll be talking about. So I think that we've run out of time for this episode now, but looking forward to the next one, right?
Yeah, I think we're going to be giving a lot of tips and tricks on how to use AI to grow your business, how to use it for your own advantage, whether you're doing it for yourself as an individual, as a business, as an entrepreneur. And I'm very excited. Again, like, be nice to AI, because you never know when they're taking over.
Be nice. That's the takeaway from this episode. Be nice to your AI, you know. And one last thing is, if you haven't already, go visit swiftplan.com. This is SWYFT. This is the new business plan builder that Virtuzone is actually building under the Swift brand. So go and check that out. Sign up for the beta because we will be releasing that to sort of our network and everything like that. It's a business plan you can build in 10 minutes. And this is just an example of something we're using ourselves to build a tool using the power of AI. So go and check that out. And otherwise, we will see you guys in the next episode.
See you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.